Hello and welcome. This video pertains to tyranny, and it is from the YouTube channel Legendary Lore. I will leave the link in the description below if you would like to watch it yourself.
Imagine a government that fears its own people, a system where open debate is seen as a threat, where gatherings are suspicious, and where wealth is deliberately drained from the masses. Sounds familiar? This isn't just a description of any modern authoritarian state. This is tyranny as Aristotle described it over 2,300 years ago. And he wasn't just theorizing about tyranny. He had personal experience with tyrants from multiple angles. As a young man in Athens, he witnessed the aftermath of the rule of the 30 tyrants. And later in life, Aristotle had a close relationship with Hermias, who was the tyrant of Atarnus. Combined with his studies, these personal exposures to tyranny provided Aristotle with a keen insight into the nature of tyrannical rule. They provided him with a nuanced understanding of how tyranny affects both societies and individuals, and how philosophical principles can stand in opposition to tyrannical power. For Aristotle, tyranny wasn't just about cruel dictators. It was an entire system of governance, an institution designed to perpetuate unjust rule. And understanding it might be just as relevant today as it was back then.
It's not might be relevant. It is relevant. Guys, the current empire that we live in the US, and the current empires that you guys live in, if you're in the UK or Australia or any Western country, we are all living in empires, present day empires, masquerading as democratic governments or governments that work for the people. It's not true. It's not true. Just look at the middle class in your country. Look at the cost of living in your country. Look at the possibility for the future generations to own land or own their own property. It's pretty much been wiped out, okay? We do not live in a world where things are done for the betterment of people. We each live in empires, in that things are done for the betterment of the few at the top. Corporations are themselves empires, okay? They are pyramidal systems. Corporations are pyramids, and there are just a few at the top who benefit from the work of the many, from the enslavement of the many. And so often the many are not taken care of. They are struggling. They live lives of constant work, constant enslavement to the system that puts them to work for the few at the top.
Why should we care about an ancient Greek philosopher's thoughts on government? Because Aristotle's insights provide a framework for understanding political systems that goes far beyond his time. His analysis helps us recognize both the subtle and the not so subtle ways in which power can be misused, even in societies that claim to be free. Aristotle's analysis helps us make sense of political phenomena so we can see it in our own rulers. So let's start our journey into the mind of one of history's greatest political thinkers and see what light he can shed on the dark corners of tyrannical rule. Aristotle's concept of tyranny is far more nuanced than our modern notion of oppressive rule. As mentioned, he presents it as a distinct political institution with specific characteristics. In his monumental work, Politics, he dissects tyranny itself. He shows us how it's different from other forms of government, including those with a single ruler. A king and a tyrant might both hold absolute power, but for Aristotle, the distinction lies in how that power is used and for what purpose. At its foundation, Aristotle defines tyranny as a system of governance that exists for the benefit of the rulers rather than the governed. But what does this mean in practice? Tyranny, in Aristotle's view, is a corruption of legitimate forms of government. It combines all the bad elements of both oligarchy and democracy, taking the concentration of wealth from the former and the disregard for law and tradition from the latter. Interestingly, Aristotle notes that tyrants are often chosen from the meanest group of people. This suggests that tyranny isn't simply imposed from above, but can arise from within the population, especially in times of social upheaval. The result is a society where law becomes subservient to the ruler's will, state resources are used for personal gain rather than public good, and traditional checks on power are disrespected and eliminated. This stands in contrast.
Especially it goes unchecked, the abuse of power among these corporations and among our world governments. It goes unchecked because of lobbying, because ultimately, as it has been demonstrated, ultimately governments are going to go where the money is. They're going to listen to the money. And it's been proven over and over again through lobbyists. You might think you have a really good law in the works for the betterment of your community, but all it takes is a lobbyist to come in and say, we gotta eliminate this law. We can't even let this law get in because it's going to impact the profits of my corporation. Okay, guys, lobbyists have far more power than any of your votes.
To Aristotle's conception of a true king. While both a tyrant and a king might wield absolute power, the key distinction lies.
And this is a great image because it shows sort of a businessman on the left and a king on the right. And it's, to me, these individuals are the same. The rulers of corporations and the rulers of empires, of kingdoms, are the same. Corporations are empires. These two men are the same. They operate on the same system, the same formula. They concentrate wealth at the top while giving very little back to those at the bottom. And yet those at the bottom of their empires, of their pyramid schemes, those at the bottom suffer the most and do the most work. Okay? A CEO or a business owner, a corporation owner, is no different than a king or an emperor. They each run empires. Okay? And again, an empire is a pyramidal system in which the many at the bottom slave away for the few at the top.
As in the purpose of their rule. A tyrant governs for personal gain. A king respects the law and traditions and rules for the welfare of the community. Crucially, if the people no longer want the king's rule, a true king will willingly abdicate, something unthinkable for a tyrant. Aristotle argues that this situation makes tyranny inherently unstable. When a government systematically prioritizes the interests of its rulers and their friends over the populace, it generates widespread discontent. In essence, Aristotle sees tyranny not just as bad leadership, but as a fundamental perversion of government's purpose. It's an institution that inverts the very reason for political community, using the state as a tool for the advantage of the few rather than the welfare of all. But how does such a system come to be? Aristotle's analysis goes beyond the cliché of a foreign conqueror or a king's son who becomes tyrannical. While that is sometimes the case, tyranny is rarely caused by conquest. According to Aristotle, tyranny often emerges from within existing political systems, particularly democracies and oligarchies. The path to tyranny, he argues, is paved with popular support and clever manipulation of societal divisions. In democracies, Aristotle observes that tyrants often start as demagogues, charismatic leaders who gain popularity by championing the cause of the common people against the elite. They promise to address social inequalities and redistribute wealth. Let's look at a historical example, Pisistratus in Athens. Pisistratus rose to power in the 6th century BC by positioning himself as a champion of the common people. He famously staged an attack on himself to gain public sympathy and a significant personal security force, which he then used to seize the Acropolis. Despite twice being overthrown, Pisistratus regained power each time through a combination of popular support and strategic alliances, eventually establishing a tyranny that lasted until his death. In oligarchies, tyranny can arise when one member of the ruling elite outmaneuvers the others, consolidating power for themselves. This might happen through political scheming, election fraud, or by appealing to the disenfranchised masses for support against their fellow oligarchs. Aristotle notes that times of social and economic upheaval are particularly ripe for the emergence of tyrants. When there's widespread.
Precisely. And he's going to go into it, but I know, I know why. Because people are desperate. People are tired of suffering. They are tired of working paycheck to paycheck seeing the US dollar dwindle away into zero cents. Okay. It's almost there, guys. The US dollar is almost going to be worth 0 cents. Okay. Uh, people are tired, and they're tired of seeing all of these corporations, especially like Amazon and Walmart and YouTube and Google, like they all do so well while the majority of people struggle. Um, and just how we are inundated with the things that these corporations want from us. They feed us advertisements and they feed us things that they think um, will better normalize the world around us. If they just feed us entertainment and if they just get us to agree to let them deduct money from our bank accounts every month, like, then we cool, we're in the system and they're cool with us, and we like them and we like their products. But ultimately, what is happening, if you really get down to, if you distill it all down, what is happening, guys? What's really happening? How many corporations do you pay every month? And how many corporations do you have to pay indefinitely because you need to power your house? You need to put gas, heat your house with gas, or you need to heat your house with oil, or, you need to work. So you got to pay for your internet. Like, I'm just saying, guys, like we are all paying corporations every single fucking month, while a majority of us are slaving away, struggling, and not really getting by, not really thriving. These corporations are thriving, but we are not thriving as a collective. Some of us are doing well, but by and large, a majority of us are feeling it. This is not living. This is not thriving. And when people feel like that, when they feel like they are desperate for some relief, can I just please be human again? Then they look to their politicians. They look to the person running for presidency, and they it's like they hope, they hope that this one person running for president, will save them from the struggles they are enduring, and the sad thing about it, guys, is that it doesn't matter who you vote for. Your vote is never more powerful than the money that these lobbyists pay into the system to keep the corporations winning every day. We struggle and we lose every day while the corporations keep winning and gaining every day. Okay. Right now is absolutely the prime time to have an election, because all the people are beat to shit. We are all beat to shit. We are all struggling. A lot of us are struggling, and no one really cares, And so a lot of us are desperate for someone to come by and save us from our struggles. But the sad truth is that this is going to keep happening. It happens at every single empire for thousands of years, people. It happens. We have all been manipulated, and so too have previous civilizations. Okay, guys? That's what I'm saying. This is not doom and gloom, guys. This is like, educate yourselves and become less reliant on the system that enslaves you.
Spread discontent with the current system. People become more willing to support radical changes, even at the cost of their political freedoms. In other words, the rise of a tyrant isn't just about one person's ambition. It's a symptom of deeper institutional and societal issues, including political dysfunction, economic disparities, and the failure of existing systems to meet the needs of the populace. Aristotle's study of tyranny revealed a consistent set of methods that tyrants use to keep their power. His observations give us insight into how tyranny worked in ancient times, and surprisingly, how it might look even today. Let's break down these tactics. Aristotle noticed that tyrants often start by going after the rich and influential in society, by getting rid of prominent citizens, either through exile or worse, and taking away their wealth. Tyrants eliminate potential rivals. He mentions how Periander of Corinth took away the property of the nobles. This tactic serves multiple purposes. It removes alternative leaders, weakens traditional power structures, often fills the tyrant's own pockets, and can gain support from common people by painting the tyrant as a champion against rich oppressors. But tyrants don't stop there. Aristotle observed that they also actively work to keep the general population poor. It is a device of tyranny to make the subjects poor, he writes. This isn't just cruel, it's strategic. People struggling to make ends meet don't have the time or resources to oppose the government. They're too focused on daily survival. And tyrants often start huge building projects too, like the pyramids in Egypt. While they might seem impressive, Aristotle saw their true purpose, draining people of resources while keeping them busy, making everyone dependent on the state. Tyrants also encourage people.
Okay, guys, just let that sink in. Just let that sink in. Poverty is built into civilization. It is built into empires. And why is that? You would think like, oh my gosh, who would create such a monstrous system, right? Who would want to purposefully make and create poor people and sustain their poverty so that they never succeed? They never experience what it is to thrive, right? Like, who would do that? We all know who does that. And it's emperors, it is empires, it is rulers of empires. They do that because they rely and depend on the poor to do the shit work. Much like corporations today rely and depend on the poor to do their shit work, whether it's outsourcing to sweatshops, like where a lot of your cell phones come from. They come from sweatshops, guys. Okay, or people here in the country that you live in the U.S. Who works in fast food, who works in retail. By and large, it's the poor. It's the poor. And these jobs are normalized. And it's like, it's normal. It's cool to work here and there. No, it's not. It's not cool because actually a majority of those people spend hours of their lives slaving away, and they get very little in return, and they hardly get anywhere. Okay? We're not talking about people who ever manage to save up enough money to buy their own home. Okay? It may be once upon a time, maybe in the 80s, maybe in the 70s, and maybe part of the 90s, but not anymore, guys. Okay? There are people born today who will land in jobs that are never going to take them anywhere, and they will be forced to work in these jobs, in these dead-end jobs, because of their economic status. And that economic status is being sustained and dictated by the very system that depends and relies on them to be poor in order to work the shit jobs.
To inform on each other, even rewarding those who report on their neighbors. This breeds a climate of suspicion where no one knows whom to trust. As Aristotle writes, for a tyranny is not destroyed until some men come to trust each other. Instead of allowing free discussion and learning, tyrants promote their own narratives. They control what information is available to the public, shaping what people know and think. This approach prevents people from developing the critical thinking skills and knowledge that might lead them to question the tyrant's rule. He also noted that tyrants often prefer foreign soldiers and administrators over their own people. It is a mark of a tyrant to have men of foreign extraction rather than citizens as guests at table and companions, feeling that citizens are hostile but strangers make no claim against him, Aristotle writes. He then talks about how foreigners are more willing to act against the local population if ordered to. Constant surveillance was...
That, guys, and I will leave the link in the description below, but think about what he just said. And think about what is happening in the U.S. right now. And just so you guys know, if you didn't know, what is happening in the U.S. already happened in the U.K. Okay, there was already mass migration into the U.K. within the last 10, 15 years. And absolutely, there is a housing crisis in the U.K. in that the people who are born, so often the people who are born in the UK can't get housing help, can't get a council house, because people who came in from other countries are in the council houses. Like, it's happening here, guys. It already happened in other countries, and it's happening here. And what he just described is the strategic purpose of it. That these governments, these Western countries, these governments want people from other countries to come in, because people from other countries don't really know what's going on. We know what's going on because we've lived here our own whole lives. But think about it. Foreigners are coming in. They have no idea how corrupt the system is. They think this is the land of the free. They think their lives are going to be a lot better when they come here. And yet they are all just cogs in the machine. They are all just pawns in the chessboard, on the chess game. Like, they're, just like you and I, we are all just pawns, Right now, people up and down the East Coast in the US are experiencing this mass sort of mass invasion of people from other countries, and it's impacting their communities, and it just so happens to be going on right around the election time, which by the way, guys, is 2 weeks away. We are 2 weeks away from the election. Okay. Some people are thinking there's going to be civil war, and I don't blame them for having that opinion. Shit is getting wild here. It's getting wild, but we need to focus on the strategy. We need to focus on why they are doing this. And we need to remember that they have done this time and time again. Not the same people, obviously, but this is what empires do. It has been going on for thousands of years, guys. It's nothing new. It's what they do. Those in power, those who are running the US and all the Western countries that this applies to, they all know what is going on. Okay. It's really sad, but simultaneously, guys, if you just inform yourselves and you just educate yourself on what is happening, you will be more prepared for what is to come. Okay. How do you prepare yourself from an oppressive system? How do you prepare yourself to deal with the fall of an empire? You become less dependent on the empire, okay? You figure out a way to grow your own food. You figure out a way to create food storages for yourself. You figure out a way to become less dependent on the very system that these assholes want you dependent on. You do the opposite. They want your focus on the president election. They want your focus on these corporations. They want your focus on the next new product. Don't give them that. Focus on yourself. Focus on your loved ones and on your community. Okay? Get into the mindset of preparing for the potential that you might be on your own. Much like the people during Hurricane Helene recently, much like they were on their own. Okay? We are all on our own, but we don't have to be it. We don't have to be alone if we choose to, again, take care of our communities. If we choose to unite, we don't have to be alone. We do need to start trusting each other more. Much like Aristotle said, like, that is how you end tyranny, is by trusting each other, putting the faith in each other rather than the system that doesn't give a fuck about you. Thank you for watching.